B1AG. I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of our presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. Be one code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. Be one thing.
Welcome black. How's it growing? It's your boy John Henry, and we also have Farmer Brian MC, and this is the B1AG Daily Bread podcast. Now, there are a lot of interesting things going on in the world right now when it comes to supply chains. There's been a lot of disruptions, and the disruptions are rippling into our daily lives as far as uh, what we see as far as prices going up and also scarcity of goods. Things are just not there. And there are more reports that these shortages are to continue. Now, today's topic is don't panic. You have inflation, supply crunches, and shortages, and they're going to require grassroots solutions. And we're going to talk about some of these possible solutions that we can come up with for ourselves because we can't fix the global supply chain. Me, I can't fix it. You can't fix it. But what we can do is build a hedge around our community for ourselves to protect ourselves from what's going on globally. So, before we really get started, I do want to go ahead and handle the housekeeping. So we're going to read our disclaimer act. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Farmer Brown. Don't panic. Inflation, supply crunches, and shortages require grassroots solutions. Let's dive deep.
Shh, my Rick Ross, don't panic. First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. Hope everybody's doing well, keeping a growth state of mind. Rick Ross Meek Mill was saying 100 keys in the attic. We need a couple hundred food boxes of canned vegetables and shipping containers in every hood across America. But once again, you don't want to address these situations in a mindset of lacking and a mindset of crisis. We really want to look at this. I'm going to say opportunity. As Rahm Emanuel said, let's not let a good crisis go to waste. This is a great time for us to have this conversation about what are some practical, localized things we can do to address this if it becomes a bigger issue than what it already is.
Okay, what I would like to play for y'all, B1 family, is just to contextualize what we're speaking of are a few videos just showing you exactly what's going on with our supply chain, but also these increasing instances of what happens to consumers during these supply crunches, shortages, and what we're trying to avoid.
And this isn't about being negative. This is about, seeing is believing. Back in elementary school, we had current events. And so what we're going to do is frame this conversation around current events. What are some codified approaches we can take to address these?
And we also want to address these situations just in a realistic manner. We can't sugarcoat or, make things smaller than what they are, but we don't need to overreact either. Check this out, y'all.
What is really driving this massive supply crunch?
Well, good morning, Heidi. What's going on right now around the world is that consumers are hoovering up goods in the big, rich economies at a breakneck pace of demand. And the manufacturers are struggling to keep up with that demand, and they're struggling to get the kind of material they need to make their goods. So you name it, there's a shortage of it. There's a shortage of key commodities, copper and iron ore. Prices are through the roof. There's a shortage of semiconductors. There are logistics issues. There have been weather events. We even had the Suez Canal block at one point a few months ago. And what these manufacturers are saying is that there is a confluence and pressures on their supply line now that really is turning their production model upside down and leaving them with big order books that they cannot meet, scrambling to get the input and commodity materials that they need to make their goods, and facing rising costs. So it's something of really a perfect storm for the global manufacturing sector, trying to meet this demand as the world slowly holds its way out of the COVID crisis.
Talked about supply chain disruptions really pushing prices higher, accelerating inflation. What does this mean for the world economy?
Well, this is the big debate, Sherry. I mean, on paper, you've got commodity prices going through the roof. The Bloomberg Commodity Spot Index up at its high since 2011. We spoke to a lot of manufacturers recently, and they all say that the prices for everything from screws to plastic resin is going up to the roof. So on paper, you'd say if these factories are facing a higher cost, then they're going to pass it along to their consumers. But that's where it becomes a little bit uncertain, because economists are wondering how much pricing power these factories do have to pass on costs to their consumers, and whether or not, in fact, this really is only a temporary blip, given all of the supply disruption we're seeing linked to the COVID pandemic, that these kind of disruption will eventually wash through the system. But I have to say, one thing I pick up from speaking with manufacturers, Sherry, is that they make the point the breadth of disruption this time is like nothing they've seen before. It's not just high price for one particular commodity, or not just high prices for the cost of oil, for example. It's across the board. They're paying through the roof for these input materials. They can't even source input materials. So in that kind of environment, I think it would be foolhardy to completely rule out any kind of inflationary spillover effect.
So to that end, and what do you see as it taking for the situation to improve?
Well, this is the big question, Heidi. I mean, it goes back to this whole point about, are we viewing something that's transitory? I mean, this is the line that comes out of the Fed in terms of the global inflation debate. What we're seeing is kind of temporary supply disruption. But again, when you speak to these manufacturers, they're not seeing much by way of a circuit breaker. I mean, they're trying to buy as much of the input material as they can right now to ensure that they have inventory to make the goods that are under order books, 6-9 months from now. So they're not seeing any kind of a circuit breaker. Take the shipping container issue, for example. That shortage has been running for months. Prices went through the roof. The narrative at the time was, once we get past Chinese New Year, that kind of blockage will ease and those prices will come down. But that hasn't really played out like that. Likewise, the semiconductor story. I don't think anybody is seeing a near-term turnaround of that story anytime soon. South Korea now talking about investing $450 billion over a decade to ramp up that kind of chip production. So I think, of course, some of this is transitory. Of course, it reflects what's going on due to the pandemic disruption. But as I say, when you speak to these factory managers on the ground who are facing these procurement orders and trying to buy this material, they're not hopeful for any kind of a near-term circuit breaker, and they're not seeing any change in conditions anytime soon.
Let's break this down. So a bowl of cereal, You know, when we talk about commodities or raw goods, something such as corn, wheat, oats are raw goods that are transported around the world. When we think about agricultural economies, a large percentage of our farmers here in North America make their money based on there being a foreign buyer, China being one of the major buyers. And so looking at this bowl of cereal, whether it's my Cheerios or Wheaties or whatever it is we're eating, and so you have a company like Kellogg's General Mills that has all the money in the world. We have the boxes, we have the facilities, we have the factories, but we don't have the wheat. We don't have the corn. Why don't we have the wheat and the corn? Is it because the farmland disappeared? Well, no. The shipping has been disrupted. Not only have the shipping containers that take these goods overseas, that same supply chain, when he's talking about logistics, has been disrupted just within North America. When we think about this gas pipeline, even that short breakdown affected this pipeline of getting goods from point A to point B, taking it from this raw material out of ground, this agricultural product out of the ground, to a processor to turn it into the oatmeal, to turn it into the cereal, to turn it into the corn flakes. And so as a result of this, prices have to go up. Well, why do prices go up? Because now Kellogg's, General Mills, is going to have to pay more to try to ship their order, to try to move their order closer to the front of the line to be processed. Who ends up paying for this? You know, corporations are protected and they're able to pass these costs on to the consumers. One could say, you know, why would I get involved in that? Why is it important? Here at B1AG, we like to be very specific about food security, Black agriculture. 48% of the Black farmers are getting their money off of livestock. And so that's a whole different industry when you're talking about cattle, raising sheep, goat. And so a lot of our farmers, unfortunately, aren't necessarily into the grains per se. That isn't where the big bag is coming from. And only 1%, it's actually less than 1% of Black farmers is bringing in over $1 million a year. Actually, 75% are bringing in less than $10,000. I'm saying that to say this is a call of action to the B1AG community as we're having this discussion. We have to, not should, could, we have to localize our food security. We have to localize our food economy. How do we localize it? How do we find producers that are close to us? This is important because, okay, we know overall in America, food insecurity went from 20% in 2018 to 30% in 2020, obviously because of COVID. When we break this down per race, 49% of Latino households, 48% of Black households were food insecure. 26% of whites, 28% of Asians. So our food insecurity is almost double other groups around the world. As we've had this B1AG conversation, we realize most people aren't waking up in crisis thinking about how can they help another group in the crisis. And so we really have to frame this conversation, not so much getting into the big words of it, inflation, supply crunches, more so than what does this look like on ground level where we're at. Like we're talking about, okay, we're storing keys in the attic. Are we storing canned goods? Unfortunately, a lot of our families right now are dependent on the government's austerity programs, such as SNAP, WIC. I remember I used to look forward when my sister, used to get the WIC because we buy up the store, so to speak. But we're at a place in time now. You have, all of these people that are coming over the border. Take politics and emotions aside. These are people that are going to need to eat. They're going to have to eat, and their natural instinct is going to point them to the direction of what's going to feed them. We see that we're in an administration now that prioritizes every other group than the Aboriginal, Black, whatever you want to call us. Every other group is being prioritized. And so it comes a point where we have to do a needs analysis. What are some things we need? I mean, you can recognize me out here for being this, that, or the third, but are you feeding me? We're getting these experimental medicines as a means of helping us. We're getting all of these loans, the PPE loans. That's a whole nother story we'll get into later. But when it comes to our food security, what I can tell you is nobody is going to prioritize our food security more than ourselves. Real quick, if you can pull up some of these videos, because this definitely has ground level impacts, not only economically, not only with health, but what is this doing to us socially? If you can play some of these videos real quick. This is gas.
That woman spit on a man after trying to cut him off in the gas line. He spit back at him. You see what happens. This is normal. It's not normal per se, but this is how, when you have a scarcity of resources, this is usually what happens with people. They end up fighting. And that's a man and a woman.
When we think about our sisters right now, it's horrible. Peace to the family of Andrew Brown. We got black men getting shot down like dogs in the streets right now. We have a court system that'll drag clear murder out for years at a time to get any sort of justice. Now we say, I don't know if that was a sister or not, but we see the hell that our sisters are going through, trying to just secure the bag for their family, trying to make sure their kids are eating. Go to this next video, and we're going to dig into this, man.
They were actually fighting over a cart of groceries, and the woman eventually pulled out a knife on security to make sure that she could grab those groceries. That's what happens when we're dealing with scarcity of goods. And the reason why we named this podcast Don't Panic is because it's going to take us having level heads to get past situations like this. We noticed during the pandemic, like when it first started, how there was a big mass buyout of toilet paper. That came from panic buying, which caused a shortage of toilet paper all over the world. Now, what's happening now is because of all of these supply chain disruptions. Now, instead of people panic buying, now you have corporations who are panic buying to make sure that they have enough stock to supply their needs to keep their business going. And that causes shortages. The threat of a shortage causes people to go out and panic buy, which is almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy as it creates a shortage. Don't panic. We need to come up with our own grassroots solutions to deal with these situations, because if we do panic, we're showing you what's going to happen. And those little 2 instances, now imagine that being multiplied by 1,000. We have people all over the place panicking, fighting over a few products. it's going to be chaos. So B1AG family, B1 family, what are we to do to make sure that if the shortages continue, if it does get worse, what measures do we have in place for ourselves to make sure that we're not out there in the streets fighting? Because if we're out there in the streets fighting, or even just trying to protect what is ours, the odds are against us once you get, more than likely, once you get law enforcement and things like that involved. So
I wasn't there at that grocery store, and I can't even call that that male a bruh. You know, to see it's disheartening that a male, especially a melanated male, would be in a conflict over a food basket. Like I said, I don't know the dynamics behind it, but you know, once again, as above, so below. When you apply that on a small level, what does that look like? A male taking food away from a woman? Who knows what the woman had going on? Did she say something smart? That's irrelevant. As males, you know, this word of high value male has been thrown all around society lately. Are we producing when we think about what this grassroots effort to address this looks like? And so there's a reason why the skull protects the brain. The skull is a stronger structure. You know, you have more bone, you know, the calcium to protect that soft brain representing our women, our food security. Certain social issues we have, disagreements we have aren't going to matter if everybody's going hungry. And so as we have this conversation, what does this look like, you know, theoretically speaking? So in a situation where we're not fighting with each other over a grocery basket, I was being funny, but not being funny. Do we have storage facilities spread out in each of our communities? You can literally break it down to we know that each of us need, you know, a certain amount of food per year, especially produce. An individual needs 200 square feet worth of food. We know we can make up with the horizontal space vertically. We know we can grow a lot of this food on our balconies, for example, as far as herbs, something like that. We can grow some of these foods in our backyards, right? We can lease space. You know, landowners, there's black landowners that, you know, I have X amount of acres I can lease to you, because we don't want to get into the thing where we're asking somebody to just be nice and give. We want to have a reciprocal relationship. And so a farmer that's 25 to 55 miles away from where I live, I have a family of four. I have four young, you know, three young men and one daughter. Okay, they're in elementary, middle school, and high school age. I don't have a lot of money to give, but I know that you have a crop that you're working on. Is there some sort of internship program that you're offering? Because we do know that there's federal programs that will actually pay certain, you know, to have people working during the summer. What are some non-conventional ways we can leverage different forms of capital? You know, there's sweat equity, there's obviously fiat, there's social capital. You know, are we able to leverage our, people's respective popularity in their communities to get this word out to individuals that, hey, we need to really develop a food system? Can we create a quasi CSA share, a communal CSA share, to where, okay, maybe everybody's not going to have the same amount of money to pitch in, but there are ways to work numbers to where, okay, if you're not going to be able to pitch in as many numbers, you're going to put in more man hours, whether it's going out here to water some of these gardens. Do we have workforces, 5-man workforces to just go around and water some of these gardens, since we realize that, okay, some of these plots aren't successful because, you know, people are going to work, so they don't have time to water or weed their gardens or their crops. And so do we have vans? You know, do we have vans to kind of transport these people around each hood? Because each of these components are absolutely necessary to create a local food system. Do we have proper storage facilities? Are we talking with the elders to learn some of the old ways of canning and storing food? I mean, you can can them in the mason jars. That's what we do in my family. There's also different methods, you know, smoking your meat, for example. Airtight, you know, you can create those airtight plastic packaging. Are we investing in those machines that do that? Do we have commissary kitchens around the community, one per every 10 square miles, for the sisters that know how to cook well? Okay, you know, I can't really go to work. You know, Biden, they're trying to whip everybody. What did the sisters say? They're trying to whip the nakers back into work. Okay, how are we creating quasi workforces? And so maybe we can't afford to pay somebody a job that's going to have retirement, but we can at least make sure you're going to eat as we're going through this time where there's a crunch on supplies. Are we supplying the chefs around the communities that can cook these pre-prepared meals for the sisters or brothers who might not have the time to cook? Do we have the investors, the people out here actually earning the money? Are we supporting their endeavors? Are we making sure that people know about their businesses to make it rain on their businesses so they can then invest in some of this equipment that we need, the processing? Are we analyzing our diets? Are some of our dietary desires actually a lot more than our actual dietary needs? There's different religions that have this concept of fasting, and when you break it down scientifically, and now as we're even talking economically, are we doing communal fasting events? Okay, maybe everybody doesn't ascribe to the same religion. To come knock on my door and tell me, hey man, you can't eat as much. You gotta stop eating one day. I'm not gonna take well to that, especially when it comes to my kids. But are there cultural ways that we can kind of infuse some of these natural principles? And it doesn't have to be in a non-religious sense. Okay, y'all, since we see we're coming into a time of scarcity, whether it's real or unreal, we see, like you said, there's no way we can compete with companies, right? When it comes to, this crisis buying. And so are we having communal events where, okay, one day out of every 2 weeks, we're just going to go on these hikes. We're going on these water diets. What are some creative ways within each of our community where because, one or two people trying to address something, you're not really going to be able to affect it versus you have buy-in from those in your community. Right now, I'm in Central Kentucky, right? So it's only so much I can say to somebody in South Georgia, in North Carolina, in New York City, in Los Angeles, in Arizona, in Texas. But the principles are the same. We know we need to eat. We see that there is a strain on the system that provides the food that we eat. The same way McDonald's has a franchise model. They even have farms now where they grow the cows. I don't know if you've seen them with the holes on the side of them. I've actually worked with some of those cows on the research farm. They have cows and they have a processor. Okay, we got our own processor. We're not going to leave it to a private processor. We've invested in infrastructure to have our own processor for our cows. We got X amount of farms we work with to get our potatoes for our French fries. We have storage facilities within X amount of miles of any McDonald's franchise we have to make sure we're not going to go without burgers. We're not going to go without fries. That same franchise model can apply within our communities. Of course, we don't have billions of dollars like a McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A, a Wendy's, Burger King, but we have the capital to have smaller models within these communities where Walmart or Kroger or Publix might have a large warehouse to store their food, which is only 3 days worth in any store you go to. Are we investing in shipping containers? Are we creating, these refrigeration models, which, there was brothers that innovated this, decades ago. How can we reinvent it? We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, more so than remixing it to really localize this food system. Are we promoting vegetables? So what happens, going back to this concept of this bowl of cereal? What happens when, okay, all my kids are going to eat is this cereal out of boxes, and suddenly there's a shortage on them, or, this once $3 box of cereal is now $10. Okay, as a mother, okay, I got rent to pay. I got to get back and forth to work. So son, daughter, I can't afford this box of cereal. Are we creating a culture where we can appreciate vegetables more? Because I can tell you there's a science behind your taste palette. So early on, General Mills, Kellogg's, they understood we need these kids to have this taste, this desire for what we call sugar, for saccharin. We know the body needs sugar anyway, but we want you to like our brand of sugar. Same way with Pepsi or any other product. They literally train you from the beginning to have your taste palette addicted to their product. No different than crack or any other drug. And so are we doing this, as conscientious parents, as people? Okay, we realize like, wow, we're severely dependent on people that don't really, have our best interest at heart. This, like I say, this isn't an overnight process, but it's some of these things, these action items that we can take within our houses. Okay, maybe our children aren't used to eating vegetables 7 days a week. So let me introduce it slowly and make sure it's vegetables that you can get close to where you're at. And this is what you would call a staple diet. Maybe the diet I have here in Kentucky might not be the same diet somebody has in New York. We have to look at what is readily available within 100 miles of where you're at. And here lies also when we're thinking about investment, when we're thinking about who are the different farm producer relationships we need to have. Okay, I need to have a farmer that's going to produce the potatoes, the sweet potatoes. I need to have a farmer that's going to produce the onions, the lettuces, the tomatoes. And this is how we create networks. When we talk about these cooperative economic models, okay, we know we have X amount of people that live in the community. Everybody's not going to feel like, oh, well, I'm cool. I got a job. I don't need to do that. What we're seeing with this, how many people in that gas line had good jobs, good money, but they're in the line with somebody that got no money vying for the same gas? And so we have to apply this same concept to our basic food security. Because once again, politics and nothing else matters if we're not able to eat. Growing our own food, making the best use of whatever limited space we have. Whatever I can grow on my own, guess what? I'm not dependent on somebody else. Would I be able to just fulfill my family's need of food in my backyard? No. But there's X amount of meals, X amount of weeks worth of meals that I can. But if I have X amount of friends that are, you don't even have to be friends. You have to have somebody with an appetite and a vested interest in making sure you eat. Okay, you can provide a part of my staple diet right up the street. So just in case the logistics between the work, the trucks, the storage facilities go down, we at least have a conversation relationship within our community where I know I can go up the street to you because we had this conversation last year that you now have beans, you have snap peas. There's something you grow that I eat. There's something that I grow that you eat. We trade. Just in case we can't go to the store and expect to find what we normally buy. Once again, we want to be real cool about this conversation because it's not a thing to panic. It's not a thing to panic about at all. It's actually, once again, an opportunity to really focus on, because this is a niche. We see that the world right now is in a crisis to where we're so dependent on this global system of food production and distribution that we've lost the basic ability to just procure food locally. A squirrel doesn't have the luxury of, okay, I'm going to get my nuts from a tree in Africa. I'm going to get my nuts from a tree in Australia. A squirrel knows how to forage and get food where it's at. And so applying that same concept mentally as the melanated family, are we honing in on that skill? Because I can guarantee, all of us have different skill sets, different intellects to bring to the table. But the degree to where we can localize our food system closer to where we're at, within 25 to 50 miles of where we're at, just in case, okay, we don't have a lot of people that got gas. And so as a community, we agree that brother Chris up the street with the truck, we have a fund, we have a bank account that we all went in on to make sure if there's a crisis, there's X amount of gasoline available, there's a truck available, or there's X amount of funds available just in case we need. It's only one person that can leave this community to go get the food and bring it back. We've already put it in there. Nothing is left to chance. We're not gonna make this brother have to get in line with hundreds of other people to try to get gas. Like you said, trade and barter locally. And, once again, it's not coming from a crisis mindset more so than seeing the opportunity and the entrepreneurial opportunity. To me, I see it more as an entrepreneurial opportunity. What did Pac say? See the weakness in the game and you sold it. The weakness is nobody in America has a perfect localized food system. We see other groups that are coming from communities and countries like the Nepalese, for example. Absolutely. Thoughts are capital. And we have a brain trust of smart people within our community that are isolated. The people find themselves in silos. You have these great ideas, but you can't get along with the people around you. You're around these people that just want to take your idea and go run off with the bag. You're around these organizations that are predatory. We have some organizations out here, they'll give you these surveys. Now, what are your problems? We're giving you a needs analysis. Now, what do you need? Okay, and how much of this do you need? And they'll take that information and make sure they withdraw that from you. So saying that to say, how do we make sure we're working with those who have the same vested interest of feeding ourselves within our communities? There is no leader. The code is the leader. The code is melanated people eating, not just seeing the next day, but innovating what this localized model of Black food looks like in the years to come. If we want to call this a crisis, this isn't going to be the end of this. Because at the end of the day, there are some people making a lot more money because of this. And nobody's going to work against their own financial best interest for the sake of the Browns out there who can't get it together and don't know how to work with one another. I hope the family sees this as a grand opportunity. Not only, like I said, for the immediate, just, hey, do we know people immediately around us? When we're thinking about, they're talking about making it rain on these HBCUs. I've been seeing all sorts of other colleges, really trying to keep themselves relevant. Call them on it. Call them on it. We're not going to send our kids there to just have a good time. We're going to send our children there to learn a science to bring back to our communities. Not only are we going to send them there to learn, we're going to teach them. We're going to make this something important to them within our community, to where when they come there, they're already on code. They already know what it is they're going for. I'm specifically going here to know how to do ag business, how to get the most out of whatever is produced from the ground. I'm specifically going here to learn how to do law, because I know we're in a nation in a world of laws. And so I'm not going to focus on the guy or the girl that's over there growing. I'm going to focus on protecting them legally, so nobody's coming as predators taking their land. Okay, I don't want to do law. I don't want to produce, but I want to master shipping. I want to, I'm somebody that likes to work with trinkets and devices. And so I'm going to make sure in every hood in America where we see melanated people that we have these franchise models of high tunnels, these greenhouses, to where we know the type of tomatoes we're going to get every year. I can pinpoint on my tablet. Once again, there was a time where a tablet didn't exist. Somebody had to create it. So as the brother said, some of the majority of our wealth is in our mind. And so if we can plant that seed in our mind of really feeding ourselves, the simple task of feeding ourselves in whatever perceived crisis, this becomes the bag of the future.
Now, I just want to let our B1 family know that, when it comes to this global economy and the supply chains and how everything is interconnected, it's a intricate, delicate system. It's intricate system, but it's also a massive system, but it's very delicate. We operate, most businesses, especially grocery stores, they operate on a JIT platform. JIT stands for just in time. That's why they only have 3 days worth of food, is because they rely on these current regular shipments coming in to keep the stores stocked, because food has a shelf life. So to make sure that we have the freshest food, that food needs to constantly be coming, constantly being shipped, constantly being brought to the people. JIT, just in time. Now that, with the supply chain disruptions, and everything that's going on, it's destroying that system. It is destroying that just in time system. So what we need to do as locally is to create our own just in time system. We need to grow food ourselves. We can't necessarily depend on getting tomatoes from California or pineapples from Hawaii or getting these shrimp from China. We need to make sure that we have our own food close to us and a means of getting this food to the people. And we need to put this effort and thought and intent on this now. Because it's not that bad now, but just what the world is showing us is showing how bad it could get, and that this is a problem. So let us fix the problem. We can't fix it for the whole world, but we can start with fixing it for our community, just for our family. Start with your family, work your way to the community. So, Farmer Brian, do you have anything else you would like to say about telling our folks not to panic?
Shh, don't panic. Store food up in the attic. B1AG, make this growing food automatic. Freestyling off the dome. but I'ma drive it home. We don't need to eat off them. We can feed our own.
Heard it.
This is a grand opportunity, y'all. We are in our finest hour. I don't say that in a pie in the sky mindset. I say that knowing that this is the opportunity that our ancestors have been praying for, where the field has been leveled. The field has been leveled. We see the problems. There's a power in truth. And when we can truthfully address feeding one another, we can truthfully address making sure that each family, it don't matter, I might not ever talk to you, but I know you have a stomach. I know you have people that you care about that have a stomach. I have something I never call myself ignorant because I don't see myself as that. But there's a lot of knowledge I don't have when it comes to production. I know how to grow vegetables and some fruits, but to me, this is the opportunity to meet people that can do it better. All of us have a skill set that goes directly into how we eat. All of us have something to contribute. Never look at yourself as, I don't know what I can do. I was watching a Muppet Baby show with my kids last night, being funny, but Scooter, this is for the older cats, Scooter didn't know what his talent was. And his talent was figuring out problems at the moment. He wasn't necessarily an artist. He couldn't sing. He didn't have swag, so to speak, but his skill was being able to figure out problems at the moment. And so we have people that just by the nature of how this system has cultivated us, that are able to figure out problems on the moment. And so the degree that we can get our minds, these brilliant Black minds, focused on food security, not asking somebody to prioritize feeding us, not asking somebody to give us synthetic meat, not asking for, let me just give you health care. I'm not going to feed you. I'm not going to stimulate you economically, but let me give you health care. The degree that we can get our brains to focus on how do we optimize this local food system, optimizing local food systems, getting food from the producer to the consumer. Who are the producers? We know we have 0.4% of the land in North America, but guess what? That with a codified approach, that can equate to a significant amount of our diets if we see it as valuable. There's only 11,000 pro sports jobs, and this is football, baseball, basketball, but we managed to make it rain on those 11,000 players by getting their jerseys, by tickets, subscriptions, video games, all of these things that endorse or that their images and their skill set on the court, on the field endorse. If we can value our producers, not just the large scale farms, the brothers and sisters that have community gardens, if we can make it rain on their operations. Obviously, they're not selling jerseys, but I imagine, they would love to, get a couple $100 for a farm tour, bring some of the local schools around for the kids to take notes, for them to watch somebody with brown fingers growing something. I imagine they would love that. I imagine some of these rural farmers would love to have, some of these community organizations rent some buses and bring some children out and have a farm to table lunch where they can be paid to source. Because I know in Kentucky, Department of Agriculture said they'll give at least $600 on any meal that's at least 60% sourced by the producer. So these are resources that are available. I had to go meet with the Secretary of Ag to find out about it. But, anywhere you're at, these are regular people. If you have a very codified, specific ask, if you know exactly what you're asking for is there, nobody's going to come knocking on our door saying, hey, y'all, I've been, in the midst of our crisis, I've been thinking, how can I help y'all poor little Negroes? Nobody does that. When we have a codified ask and when we have a community that says, and I support what this sister just asked, I support what this man just asked. And my goal, as far as for my children, I don't want them in a position where they have to ask. I'm hoping as a father in what we'll call 2020, I'm doing something, I'm connecting with the people to where here in the next 20 years, they're just doing straight business. Because there was a community of people, there was a network of people, almost like Avatar and AIWA, there was a network of people that created this foundation. Because the Black farmers already, our ancestors already put that genetic skill set in us to be able to produce under hard circumstances. And so with my layer, we have technology, we have social media, we've learned a lot more. We have way more information available to us than our predecessors. And so how can we take this and keep building this mound of Black success, this mound of melanated perfection? We need to seek a perfect food system that feeds ourselves. We have to do this starting yesterday because we see the world around us isn't prioritizing it. With all of these breakdowns right now, not too many people are sitting worried about what we're doing. So for those that have this stigma of, oh, if we build it, they'll tear it down. Build it so strong it can't be torn down. There's a power in truth. We don't have to operate in the shadows anymore, family. We out here. We out here. Build the greatest localized food system that's ever been created. Make sure the melanated people eat first. And we have a choice of, hey, if you offering the right price, we'll sell you these products. We'll offer these processing services that our young minds done went to school and mastered all of these perfect machines. Oh, we've developed these workforces around all the Black communities and melanated communities in North America to where, okay, you're in a rural area, you need some help on your farm. Okay, yeah, you don't work with the H-2A workers no more. Well, hey, we have these workforces everywhere around America that can come and do every farm service you got. What you need, what you need, just planting, harvesting, seeding, basic farm maintenance. We're training these workforces, and we can do this wherever we're at. What did they say? You're knocking out multiple birds with one stone. So once again, the degree that we value creating our own localized food systems, we create the opportunities for those coming after us to eat better and not wait on a system that is falling to feed us.
B1AG family, I hope this topic today sinks in. It continues to reinforce our message, and that is that we need to get to growing. We need to put these shovels in the ground. We need to get these seeds in the ground. If you do have any questions for us or would like to show off what you are growing, go ahead and send that to b1aghiphop.com or b1aghiphop@gmail.com. Show us what you're doing. Show your family out there in the garden with you. Let us know, let's show the world that this is something that we could all do together. And also, we do have our class, Black to the Garden. You can sign up at healthyblackfood.com and learn how to grow your own food. It's very entertaining, it's informational, and this is, again, reinforcing a survival skill that we all need to have. If you enter the promo code podcast, you get an instant 30% off. Okay, just one moment. Now, Farmer Brown, what's this is that you sent?
So this is a sister, Allison Sudbury's garden that she's gotten started, looking good.
All right, let me show that with y'all. Alice Sudbury. As you can see, she has her all of her beds, all of her raised beds, and even have just getting planted. But those raised bed gardens that she has, I'm counting like 8 of them. That's going to produce a significant amount of food for her family. And not only is it going to produce a significant amount of food for her family, it's also going to, this is exercise, this is health, this is mental wellness, this is gaining personal power and being able to provide for yourself. This is it's powerful. This is powerful This is powerful. This is what I want to, I need you to understand that this is power. This is what power looks like. So family, as we end each show, if you really want to know something, Farmer Brown, what do they need to do?
Shh, don't panic. Just learn how to grow something.
Everyone, be prosperous, be healthy, have a great day, hug somebody, tell somebody you love them, and we'll see you back here again at B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. Let's get to growing. Peace out.